Hey friends, this month we are talking about our commitment to a shared economy, which is usually linked closely together with our commitment to shared work. But this time around, I want to focus specifically on our commitment to a shared economy. This is probably one of the least developed commitments in our rule of life, particularly because this commitment was originally designed and written to be expressed in a residential community. We still hope for a monastery someday. I still pray weekly for this, and I would love to ask you to join me in praying for us to someday have a shared residential community where people can come and live out their novitiate and vowed life for a season of up to 5 years. That's always been the long-term dream for the Order of the Common Life. So keep that in your prayers if you don't mind. We're going to get there someday. But in the recent years, we've been trying to think about ways to apply this commitment to a shared economy within our dispersed form of life as well, the non-residential community that we're building. There's really two parts of our commitment to a shared economy, at least how I presently see it. And the first is this. It's the reality that there are people within the community of the common life that have real needs. And we would love to explore how we might have a shared economy fund someday where people with financial needs could make requests of that fund and receive some help in a time of need. I think we're going to be able to get there in the next couple of years. But listen, this is going to take a lot of administrative support that we simply don't have right now. We're focused on a couple other things. The second part of the commitment to a shared economy is the part that is a little bit more philosophical. And it's the part that I want to focus on today. It's the part that seeks to recontextualize the monastic view and vow of poverty, and that the work that the historic vow of poverty is meant to do in somebody living into that commitment. So poverty is not the goal of the monastic vow of poverty. The monastic vow of poverty is a tool of spiritual formation, and this tool has a particular shape for a specific function. And the tool is designed to purify us of our instinct to possess and our instinct to control our own security. This is how Thomas Merton describes it in his lectures to the novices at the Abbey of Gethsemane. It's that instinct to possess that needs to be converted on our way to union with God. So while historically the vow of poverty has been the primary way that this tool is used, the question that I'm asking of the tradition is this: are there ways in our context that we can allow a similar tool to have its way with us without vowing to poverty? Like, are there other tools that can help get the job done? So by way of analogy, let me offer a few props. This is a peeler. Now, you probably have one of these in your kitchen. And it's probably the best way to peel a potato or a piece of fruit like an apple or a pear. And this I'm about to show you is a paring knife. And you can also peel a potato with this tool. The outcome is about the same, but the tool is a little bit different. And listen, friends, there's no doubt in my mind that it will be good for people and for the church, for some people, to bear witness prophetically in the world with a vow of poverty, to live really simply. And some of those people might be held in that vocation by the Order of the Common Life. But in order to do that in our context, in the 21st century world, with really complex questions around healthcare and life expectancy and all of the other questions that somebody would need to sort out, I think a person vowing to poverty really should be single, have no children, and live in community. Like, I know people who have made a commitment to live at or below the federal poverty level. And I believe that they're probably doing that out of a sense of an invitation from God. But because we're trying to reimagine monastic vocations a little bit differently, we're trying to recontextualize some things, and really because I don't think it's a good idea for somebody with a family to take on a vow of poverty, we need to dig a little bit deeper into the context of what work the tool of vowed poverty has always been meant to provide. And then we need to ask the question about whether we can get maybe some of the same or similar results with a slightly different tool. So we have this instinct in us to possess and to hoard and to always want just a little bit more. How do we recognize that part of our formation in the way of Jesus, who, by the way, reminded us not to store up treasures on earth? Like, how do we take that seriously? That's the question that I'm asking. How do we partner with God to bend our lives away from that instinct to possess and towards some new posture, like a posture of generosity and relinquishment, and recognizing that we can play a role in our life, through our life, in allowing the love of God to spill out of us into the world, into spiritual friendships, into a way that untangles us from the power and the burden of having too much, while also untangling others from the power and the burden of perhaps having a little bit too little. So a commitment to a shared economy is a commitment to participate and to develop an orientation of one's will and an orientation of one's practice of sharing resources with other people. That's what we're going for. And even more at the root of this commitment is meant to train what we've talked about, our habitus. Remember, this is not just our habits. A habitus is a heart and a desire to have a consistent action in the same direction. So a commitment to a shared economy is a commitment to do the work within one's heart and to practice your way with a consistent action towards living in the world with a particular disposition that would consider your possessions as resources that belong to the Lord. And with a willingness to offer those resources to the disposal of whatever God may be inviting you into. So friends, no one living in a monastery is actually poor in the sense that they don't have the necessary clothing or food or shelter to live within that context. They're very well taken care of. And in my context and in your context, there are some things that are needed in order to live. So I have 4 kids who want to go to college. And so in my context, like, I need to plan for that a little bit. When you might have aging parents that you suspect might be in need of care, in your framework around a shared economy, you might want to consider that as part of your context. And then beyond that, there's this tension that we all have to hold. It's the tension that seeks to grow our faith and our hope and our love, where we can also, while planning for the economies of our context, we can also recognize that God is actually the one providing for us, and that God has designed his family to work in a way that we would meet the needs of one another. Paul writes in his church, to the church in the letter of Galatia, he says, "Let us work for the good of all, especially those who belong to the household of faith." So the other thing in a monastery is that everything is owned in common. Like, no one has anything more than another. And this all but eradicates envy as it relates to wealth and possessions. So the poverty that monks take on, it's meant to heal or mortify the desires in us that are inordinate, the ones that want to possess too much or to store up too much. So poverty is not meant to kill our desire to have what we actually need. I mean, Merton says, and I agree with him, that every Christian has a basic obligation to use things and to possess things in a way that takes into account the needs and the opportunities or the lack of opportunities of other people. The way that Basil of Caesarea would have said this is that if you have 2 cloaks and your neighbor does not have any cloak to keep himself warm, as a Christian, living Christianly, one of your cloaks belongs to your neighbor. Your neighbor might not have an opportunity to secure a cloak for himself. So this is really a hard thing for us living in a highly competitive environment like the United States. We've been shaped for so long and formed in a way that we think it's normal, but is actually pretty foreign to most of the rest of the world, this sort of individual idea. Globally, particularly in the South, they live more with this idea that possessions kind of belong to the community, particularly when things get hard. There's a greater sense of like, we're in this together and we're going to share with one another. And so the spirit of this commitment is a commitment to hold loosely the surplus that one has in this world and to hold it in a way that is consistently asking God, what do you want me to do with this surplus? And so as we build a dispersed community, we want to build some ways for you to consider the needs of others within the common life community, as well as just a general disposition to be willing to maybe meet the needs of others around you. So let me just close with a quick word about discussions in your monthly formation group, and then a quick word about the Order of the Common Life more generally. So in your discussion group this month, what we'd love for you to share as openly as you can, or as you're willing to, is about your relationship with this idea of training your heart towards living in a way where all of your resources belong to God. Like, where do you see generosity growing in you? Or was there a season of great generosity in you that feels maybe a bit dried up right now? I mean, that's okay. Like, let's just talk about it. Let's bring that out into the open, into some spiritual friendships and conversation. Let's bring that before God in prayer. Let's just sort of explore that together. Are you giving to your local church right now? If so, like, how does that feel? Like, does it feel joyful? Does it feel free? Or do you approach that with a sense of obligation? And lastly, and I say this at the risk of leaving you wondering if this is all just sort of a build-up and a lead-up to asking you to support our work with the Order of the Common Life, but listen, I do want to say to you that if you find that you have surplus beyond your needs, or even if you feel compelled towards giving a little bit sacrificially, I would love to have some conversation with you, specifically about the financial support that we're looking to raise over the next year as we seek to grow and expand our capacity to lead people through this work in the Order of the Common Life. Friends, we want to double the number of postulants that we can take in each year. And we want to train spiritual directors with a robust theological framework for understanding how the soul works. And we want to train directors to lead our novices through the exercises of St. Ignatius. We're committed to building as slowly as the Lord would want us to build. And we also want to be prepared to expand this work in a way where we can continue to offer what we do to folks that don't have a lot of money. And all of this will require us to raise money as any other nonprofit would need to do. And so just clearly, beyond your own needs and beyond what you might be giving to your local church, which we encourage you to do so, if you've been blessed in a way to run at a surplus, or if you feel like God is asking you to live and give sacrificially, I would love to share more with you in a one-on-one conversation about what we would like to do over the next couple of years. So friends, please reach out to me if you'd like to hear more, or you're interested in partnering more with us financially in the Order of the Common Life. The best way to reach me at this point is through my email, jared@orderofthecommonlife.org. And friends, as always, we've got some questions for you to explore and to reflect on below. Much love and grace to you. As always, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay.